This episode of The Unstarving Musician is sponsored by Liner Notes. Want to learn from the hundreds of musicians and industry pros I've spoken with for The Unstarving Musician? Sign up for Liner Notes, my curated email newsletter where I share the best insights and knowledge gems from these conversations, some of which have been featured here on the podcast. From marketing to songwriting to touring and sync licensing, you'll get actionable tips delivered straight to your inbox every 2 weeks. Liner Notes Insider, the deep dive edition, will feature exclusive deep dives, detailed case studies, and premium content that goes beyond the podcast interviews. Sign up at unstarvingmusician.com/liner notes. It's free to get started, and you can unsubscribe at any time. Welcome to another episode of The Unstarving Musician. This is episode 335. I'm Rabanzo. This is my podcast. On the podcast, I speak with independent musicians, music industry folks, and lately creatives of non-musical disciplines to explore the creative journey, the business behind music and art, creativity, and more. So how are you? Where are you? Most importantly, what are you wearing? Before I get into the meat of the episode, a couple of things. In a most recent edition of Liner Notes, which you can sign up for at unstarvingmusician.com, and you can also find it on Substack. I'll put links in the show notes for that, of course. I wanted to share a response from Dean Johannesson. I recently sent out a rather heavy liner notes talking about the weight of things, people passing, people sick, the country being sick, the United States that is seeming to, or just lots of weird things happening anyway. You might think it's great there. And if you do, good for you. But Dean told me that he felt the weight of the post, and he really appreciated where I was coming from. He admitted to being exhausted himself with keeping up with all the things that are happening right now and trying to stay informed as well as cut through the nonsense and all that stuff, and how hard it was to power through promotions on sites he can't stand to be on. But he has a scheduling site, a scheduling app that helps him a bit. So, I was sharing with Dean some of these sentiments and my whole disgust with social media and whatnot. And all of that said, Dean shared a strategy, I guess, or one of his coping mechanisms, which is to journal, which I do, but he does it daily apparently. And he does some stream of consciousness journaling and no editing, so that he can just get some things on paper and help himself feel a little better. He's biking and running as much as he can. That helps him a lot. Moving helps us. And he admitted to dreading some of his recent gigs, but finds that human connection is pulling him out of the stupor, and that reminding me that real life interaction is showing a better side of the world than what we consume online. So thanks for that, Dean Johannesson, musician, former guest of the podcast, and a longtime reader, supporter of the podcast. I really appreciate the words of encouragement. And I hope that if you're relating to any of the things that I just shared with you, that Dean shared, that you're powering through it and moving more, maybe journaling a little bit. In the last episode, 334, I spoke to Bree Noble, a musician, podcaster powerhouse. She's an educator in the music business. We discussed the realities of podcast consistency, like the technical hurdles she's overcome, and starting a podcast can feel overwhelming. We talked a bit about that, and there's like technical considerations and like with any content medium, consistency requirements. No one finds starting a podcast easy without a comprehensive roadmap. And as fate would have it, I have created a complete roadmap in a course called Podcast Startup, which covers everything from equipment selection to testing video with gear you already have. You'll find details for Podcast Startup at unstarvingmusician.com/podcast startup. And you can also, of course, find a link to my compelling conversation with Bree Noble in the show notes for this episode. And then moving on to the main content, the main reason I'm here for you today, but mentioning episode 333, also very recent, I talked about how to build, name, and nurture a creative community, drawing from insights from singer-songwriter Eli Lev, who I spoke with in episode 332. It's unusual that I would reference 3 episodes in a row that were recent, but there's a method to my madness. So Eli and I, in that conversation, covered the importance of naming your community, how to engage authentically, and how to move beyond performative social media to create real connections. But here's the question that inevitably comes next. How do you actually monetize a community? How do you turn deep fan relationships into sustainable revenue that goes beyond the pennies you're making on streaming, if you are making some pennies on streaming? Today, you and I will dive into the practical side of community monetization, exploring new platforms, revenue models, and strategies that independent artists are using right now to generate meaningful income directly from their superfans. Let's start with something a little uncomfortable, some uncomfortable math. On average, you need roughly 300 Spotify streams to earn $1. This means it currently takes about 9 to 10 million streams, depending on the payout rate, to make a little over 31,000 US minimum wage. That's what that number is. That's not happening for most independent artists. But here's what's interesting. You don't necessarily need 9 to 10 million people to make a living from your music. You need far fewer people willing to pay far more than a streaming penny or fraction of a penny. The concept isn't new. It's I've talked about it here on the podcast with other artists, and it's what Kevin Kelly famously called 1,000 true fans back in 2008. But the tools to execute this strategy effectively may be catching up to the theory. If you're like me, starting to wonder if this 1,000 true fans concept is actually working for anyone, stick around. I'll try to answer that question too. Before diving into solutions, let's talk about the core problem, which is platform dependence. So whether it's Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, or even Spotify, you're building your career on somebody else's property. Algorithms change, policies shift, accounts get suspended. You wake up one day and your primary connection to fans has vanished. This isn't theoretical. It actually happens constantly. Artists with hundreds of thousands of followers lose access to their audience overnight because of platform changes or mysterious algorithm shifts. The solution isn't abandoning these platforms. They're still crucial for discovery. The solution is owning your primary fan relationship. This brings us to an emerging category of platforms that I find fascinating: direct-to-fan mobile apps. These allow artists to create their own branded mobile experience where they control the relationship, own the data, and can implement multiple revenue streams. I'm going to highlight one platform that was brought to my attention by a guy named Dave Cool, who's also been on the podcast. He's formerly of Bandzoogle. The platform I'm talking about is called MySeat. Now, I want to be clear up front. I'm not endorsing MySeat specifically or telling you to sign up for it. The platform landscape changes rapidly, and new companies in this space face real challenges around adoption and longevity. And I'm not particularly a fan of more apps because of privacy concerns. But MySeat represents a business model and approach that I think is worth understanding, regardless of which specific platform you might eventually choose. MySeat creates a white label mobile app for artists. So instead of directing your fans to follow you on Instagram or subscribe to your YouTube channel, you're asking them to download your official app. So inside that app, you can offer multiple revenue streams, including subscription tiers for exclusive content access, direct merchandise sales, live streaming events with ticketing, auctions for unique items or experiences, meet and greet opportunities, exclusive music releases, and or behind-the-scenes content. What caught my attention in researching this platform was a specific case study. According to their materials, an artist named Sharky made more revenue from their MySeat app in the first month than they made from streaming in an entire previous year. Now, I don't know Sharky's specific numbers, and one case study doesn't prove a universal model, but it illustrates the revenue potential when you can convert even a small percentage of your audience into paying superfans. Here's what's psychologically different about this model. Instead of asking someone to stream your song for a fraction of a penny, you're asking them to join an exclusive community for a monthly fee. The value proposition shifts from consumption to membership. Think about it from a fan's perspective. For the price of 2 coffee drinks per month, maybe $10 to $15, they can get exclusive access to new music before it hits streaming platforms, behind the scenes stuff you're not sharing anywhere else, direct interaction through app-only live streams, early access to show tickets, or exclusive merchandise, or all of those things. For a true fan, that's not just reasonable, it's a bargain compared to traditional music purchasing and concert attendance. Let's run some realistic math, though. Say you have 10,000 followers across all your social platforms, and that might sound modest, but it's actually a substantial audience for an independent artist. If you can convert just 1% of those followers, 100 people, into $10 monthly subscribers, you're generating $1,000 a month in recurring revenue. That's $12,000 annually, which might not be a full-time income, but it's a significant foundation. And here's the key. Those 100 paying fans are also your most engaged audience. They're more likely to attend shows, buy additional merchandise, and spread word-of-mouth recommendations. As your subscriber base grows, you can introduce higher tiers, maybe a $25 tier that includes monthly video calls, or a $50 tier that includes signed merchandise. Suddenly, that same 100-person base could be generating $1,500 to $2,000 monthly. What's particularly interesting about platforms like MySeat is their long-term vision. They're not just thinking about individual artist apps, but about creating ecosystems where fans can discover new artists through the apps of artists they already love. Imagine downloading your favorite artist's app and being able to explore related artists within the same environment, or having a single superfan app where you can access content from multiple artists you support. This could help solve the adoption challenge that individual artists' apps face. Maybe. Let's be realistic, though, about the challenges. The App Store ecosystem is crowded. Getting fans to download and regularly use yet another app is a significant hurdle. Like I was saying, I'm not personally into it that much, having more apps for stuff. Platform dependency still exists, and you're now dependent on Apple's App Store or Google Play policies instead of Instagram's algorithms, so you're still not completely independent. There's also the sustainability question for these platform companies themselves. Building and maintaining app infrastructure is expensive. For newer companies like MySeat, there's always the risk that they might not achieve the scale needed for long-term viability, things like that. This is why I emphasize investigating the model rather than immediately committing to any specific platform. The direct-to-fan app approach is probably here to stay, but specific companies offering these services will evolve, of course. If you're interested in exploring this model, here's how I'd suggest approaching it. First, audit your current community. So how many people are actually engaging with your content? How many attend your shows? How many buy merchandise? These are your potential app subscribers. Second, start building exclusive content habits now, even before launching an app. Create a private Instagram story for your closest fans or send exclusive demos to your email list. Test whether your audience values exclusive content. Third, research the current platform options. MySeat is one, but there are others. Look at pricing models, feature sets, and most importantly, the track record and stability of these companies. Fourth, consider starting small. Many of these platforms offer tiered pricing based on audience size. You might start with basic features and a small subscriber base to test the model before investing in more advanced functionality. What we're really talking about here isn't just app platforms. It's a fundamental shift in how artists think about their relationship with fans. Or at least sometimes it is a fundamental shift. Many artists are on this sort of train of thought already. But instead of trying to reach everyone with free content and hoping for streaming revenue, you're focusing on deeper relationships with fewer people who value what you do enough to pay for exclusive content. This mirrors trends across the creator economy. So newsletter writers use Substack subscriptions instead of relying on advertising. Podcasters offer premium tiers on Patreon and Substack. YouTube creators launch membership programs. The pattern is consistent. Own the relationship, provide exclusive value, generate recurring revenue. The streaming economy has trained us to think about success in terms of reach, millions of plays, viral moments, massive audiences. The community economy asks us to think about success in terms of depth, meaningful connections, recurring revenue, sustainable careers. Both approaches have merit, of course, but if you're struggling to make streaming revenue work, or if you're looking to reduce your dependency on algorithm-driven platforms, the direct-to-fan model offers a compelling alternative path. The tools are becoming more accessible, the fan psychology is proven, and the economics make sense. Whether it's MySeat, a competitor platform, or something that doesn't yet exist, the underlying model of owning of owned fan relationships and recurring revenue, which is not new, by the way, of course, represents a significant opportunity for independent artists willing to think beyond traditional music industry structures. Okay, before we wrap up with implementation advice, I need to share some sobering research that adds crucial context to everything I've just said. While I believe the direct-to-fan model offers genuine opportunities, I also think it's important to be realistic about the challenges. Kevin Kelly, the original architect of the 1,000 True Fans theory back in 2008, later published follow-up research that should give every independent artist pause. In his investigation, he found very few artists actually making their entire living from direct true fan relationships. When he did find artists succeeding, they were typically selling high-priced items like paintings, not low-priced goods like music downloads. So kudos to those of you who are musicians but also painters, or those of you who are painters. More concerning was research by Jaron Lanier, who looked specifically at musicians. Lanier defined success as earning a predictable income sufficient to raise a child. I don't have a child, maybe you don't, but I think it's a reasonable way to look at things. And he looked at it from sources that would remain viable in an open file sharing world, like live performances, merchandise, paid downloads, but not legacy media deals or soundtrack placements. Lanier's conclusion, he couldn't find a single musician who had risen to sustainable success purely with the new digital media environment. Every successful musician he studied had first built their reputation through traditional channels, so like record labels, radio, television, before transitioning to direct fan relationships. And quite honestly, I think that stands true with all the people I've talked to here. His name is slipping my mind because I just thought of it here while recording, but he's a former lead singer of Dishwalla. His name is J.R. Richards. J.R. and Dishwalla got their start with the help of record labels, radio, TV, a lot of hard work, of course. And he seems to be doing pretty well in this type of model. This research is from 2008, and the tools have certainly improved since then, but the fundamental challenges remain relevant today. Let me share one particular illuminating case study from Kelly's research. He interviewed Robert Rich, an ambient music pioneer who had been trying the direct fan approach for nearly 30 years. Rich's experience provides a brutal, honest look at what success in this model actually looks like. Rich built approximately 600 true fans and 2,000 seriously engaged listeners over decades of work. When he sold 1,000 downloads or CDs directly at like $5 to $10 each, he cleared about $10,000 maximum. Add tour income, he netted about $10,000 for 20 concerts, requiring 3 to 4 months of full-time effort. And his total annual income approached that of a garbage collector, as he put it. I love garbage collectors, by the way. Tough job, I'm sure, and I so appreciate them. But here's what made his situation particularly relevant to our discussion. Rich noted that without his early exposure through traditional distribution channels, he probably wouldn't have his current fan base at all. He snuck in under the collapsing framework of independent distribution, in his own words, when small labels could still cast a medium-sized net to find listeners. Rich also highlighted something we haven't talked about enough, the time cost of managing direct fan relationships. Half his day went to email management. He was his own booking agent, manager, roadie, and driver. The micro-celebrity lifestyle, as he called it, resembled the fate of Sisyphus, who was constantly pushing the same boulder up a mountain. Perhaps most importantly, Rich identified what he called the tadpole in a shrinking puddle problem. When you depend entirely on a small, specialized audience, you risk creative stagnation. Push your art in new directions, and you might lose fans who loved your previous style, stay in the same lane, and fans eventually start becoming saturated with similar sounding releases. I'm not sharing this to discourage you from exploring the direct fan approaches. Rather, I want you to enter the space with realistic expectations and a clear understanding of the challenges. First, the direct-to-fan model works best as part of a diversified income strategy, not as your sole revenue source. Rich supplemented his fan income with mastering and engineering services, licensing fees, and sample clearance payments. Second, building a sustainable fan base still benefits enormously from some form of broader exposure. Whether that's traditional media, playlist placements, social media viral moments, or emerging discovery platforms, you typically need some way to reach beyond your existing network to find those initial true fans. Third, the time and money required to maintain direct-to-fan relationships is significant. Before committing to this approach, honestly assess whether you have the skills and inclination for constant fan communication, business management, and self-promotion. Finally, recognize that even with perfect execution, you might be building a modest living rather than a lucrative career. That's not necessarily a failure. Many artists find deep satisfaction in sustainable creative work that pays the bills, or at least some of them. I'm among those indie artists who's okay with this. Getting paid for my work is great, and having grocery money and money to do some other things is great too. But it's important to calibrate your expectations accordingly, right? As you evaluate platforms like MySeat and similar opportunities, remember that the platform is less important than the strategy, and the strategy needs to be part of a larger, diversified approach to building a music career. Focus on building genuine relationships with your most engaged fans, create content that provides real value beyond just your music. Think about what exclusive experiences you can offer that fans can't get anywhere else. But also think about how to maintain multiple revenue streams, how to continue reaching new audiences, and how to avoid becoming trapped in a creative bubble that limits your artistic growth. The technology will continue to evolve and new platforms will emerge, and some current platforms won't survive, but the fundamental shift toward direct fan relationships and recurring revenue models offers genuine opportunities, but it's not a magic solution to the challenges of building a sustainable music career. In the next episode for this, we, you and me, will explore how to use your community as a creative collaborator without losing your artistic vision. We'll get into crowdsourcing, creative decisions, incorporating fan feedback into your songwriting process, and building sustainable creative feedback loops that make your music better while strengthening fan connections. Until next time. As an independent podcaster, your support means the world to me. You could even say I depend on it. With that in mind, here are some things you can do to help support us. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. Leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Or shoot me a review by email, robonzo@unstarvingmusician.com, that I can use on the website. Or just share this episode with a friend. This makes a huge impact on our audience growth. You could also visit our crowd sponsor page at unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor to learn of the many other ways of supporting the podcast, including a quick and easy online tip jar. It's like click, tip, done, easy, and super appreciated. You'll find many ways of showing your support there, including through our affiliate partners like Bandzoogle, Kit, Email, formerly ConvertKit, DreamHost, and others. The music you're hearing is New Gods Part 2, the instrumental mix by yours truly. You can hear the full version, download it, or buy it at rabonzo.com. And if all this was too much to remember or process, just go to the show notes for this episode at unstarvingmusician.com to find links to all the stuff talked about in this episode. You can leave us feedback, questions, comments, complaints at unstarvingmusician.com/feedback. Thanks for listening. Peace, gratitude, and a whole lot of love.